I was homeless when I found a millionaire's wallet. What happened next changed my life.
My name is Alec Rose, and what I'm about to share with you is something I never thought I'd speak out loud. Sometimes I still wonder if it really happened, or if it was just some kind of cruel dream. But no, it happened, and it changed everything. I remember that morning so vividly because it felt like every other morning of my life back then. Cold, empty, and uncertain. When you don't have a home, the days blur together. You wake up wherever you managed to close your eyes the night before, maybe a park bench, maybe a bus stop, and you carry the same weight with you. How will I survive today? That day, I woke up with my body aching from the hard ground beneath me. My coat was thin, barely keeping out the chill, and my stomach twisted with hunger. I had no money, no food, no promises. But I had one thing: hope. As foolish as it might sound, I always believed maybe today would be different. Maybe today someone would give me a chance, not just a coin to toss in a cup, but a real chance at work, at rebuilding my life. So I set out walking. The city was alive with people rushing to their offices, carrying coffee cups and briefcases, not even noticing me as I passed. I went door to door, shop to shop, asking the same question. Do you have any work? Anything at all? Some ignored me completely, like I wasn't even human. Others looked me up and down with that same disgusted stare, as if my very presence dirtied their air. A few muttered a sharp "no" before turning away. Each rejection pressed heavier on my chest, but I kept walking. What else could I do? Then it happened. I was standing near a busy corner, watching the crowd swirl past me, when my eyes caught something on the ground. At first, I thought it was nothing, just trash. But as I bent down, my heart nearly stopped. It was a wallet, a leather wallet, sleek and heavy, the kind you know doesn't belong to someone struggling like me. My hands shook as I picked it up. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. Part of me wanted to drop it and walk away, because finding something like that, it felt dangerous, like touching a world I didn't belong to. But my hunger screamed louder. I opened it. Inside, I saw crisp bills stacked neatly, more money than I had held in months. My throat tightened as I counted them with trembling fingers. There were cards too, credit cards, business cards, and then I saw the ID. And that's when my world tilted. I knew the face instantly. He wasn't just rich. He was famous. A millionaire. The kind of man whose name was plastered on tall glass buildings, whose pictures showed up on news channels and magazines. Someone so far above me that we might as well have been living on different planets. And here I was, standing in the cold with his life in my hands. My chest pounded with a mix of fear and temptation. I hadn't eaten in days. Just one bill, just one, could have fed me for a week. No one would ever know. I could slip it into my pocket and disappear back into the crowd. The thought clawed at me, whispering like a devil on my shoulder. But then another voice rose inside me, quieter, steadier. Do the right thing. I don't know why I listened. Maybe it was the last shred of dignity I had left. Maybe it was the part of me that refused to let the world turn me into something I wasn't. So instead of running, I held the wallet close and began to walk. Every step felt heavier than the last. The skyscrapers towered above me, and finally, I found myself standing before one of them, the tallest, gleaming in the morning light, his name carved into shining letters above the entrance. My legs almost gave out. This was his building, his empire. I pushed open the glass doors, clutching the wallet like a lifeline. Inside, everything sparkled. The marble floors shone. The air smelled like money and power. People in perfect suits glanced at me with raised eyebrows, their eyes narrowing at my worn coat and unwashed hair. I tried to steady my breath, but my heart wouldn't slow down. I stepped toward the front desk, ready to explain, to return what wasn't mine. But before I could say much, the receptionist's eyes skimmed me head to toe, cold and dismissive. "We don't give out money here," she said sharply, waving her manicured hand like I was some nuisance. Heat rushed to my face. I tried to speak. Tried to tell her I wasn't there for charity, but her words cut me down before I could. People turned to look. Security guards shifted closer. Their eyes weren't curious. They were accusing. I held up the wallet, stammering that it wasn't mine, that I came to give it back, but no one wanted to hear it. The whispers started. "She stole it. Look at her. She's lying." The humiliation burned hotter than hunger ever had. To them, I wasn't a person. I was a thief, a beggar, a stain on their perfect floor. My hands shook as I clutched the wallet tighter, tears stinging my eyes, not from guilt, but from the cruel reality that no one believed me. And just as the guard stepped forward, ready to drag me out into the cold again, a voice echoed through the lobby, deep, commanding, familiar, a voice that silenced everyone in an instant. It was him. The sound of his voice cut through the air like a blade. Everyone froze. The guard stopped mid-step. The receptionist's lips parted in shock, and I stood rooted to the floor, unable to breathe. Slowly, I turned my head, and there he was, the man whose face I had only ever seen on glossy covers and TV screens. The millionaire himself, walking toward me with calm, deliberate steps that made the entire room feel smaller. The crowd parted for him like water bending around a stone. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit that spoke of power, his presence commanding respect without him needing to say a word. My hands trembled as I clutched the wallet tighter, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. This was the moment. Either I would be seen for the thief they all assumed I was, or for the truth I had tried to hold on to. He stopped just a few feet from me, his gaze dropping to the wallet in my hands. For what felt like an eternity, he said nothing. The silence was unbearable, pressing against my chest until I wanted to scream. Then, with a slow movement, he extended his hand. I placed the wallet into his palm, my fingers shaking so violently I nearly dropped it. He opened it carefully, eyes scanning the contents, the untouched cash, the pristine cards, the ID still in place. Not a single thing was missing. His jaw tightened, and he looked up, not at me, but at the people around us. "She didn't steal this," he said firmly, his voice steady, sharp enough to slice through every accusation that hung in the air. "She brought it back, an honest woman." Gasps rippled across the lobby. The receptionist's face flushed red. The guards shifted uncomfortably, and whispers spread like wildfire. But I wasn't relieved. Not yet. My throat ached, my chest heavy with humiliation. The sting of being accused, of being looked at like I was less than human, didn't vanish just because his woo-her Diaz cleared me. For the first time, his eyes met mine. They weren't cold like the others. They were searching, almost curious. He studied me, the torn coat, the hollow cheeks, the exhaustion I couldn't hide. Then, to my surprise, his voice softened. "Tell me your story," he said. The lobby fell silent again, but this time, it wasn't judgment I felt. It was fear. Fear of opening myself up, of letting a man like him, someone from a world so far from mine, hear the truth of what I'd endured. But something inside me cracked open. Maybe it was the way his words carried no mockery, only genuine interest. Maybe it was because for once, someone powerful wasn't turning away. So I spoke. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. About losing my job, the apartment I couldn't pay for, the friends who slowly disappeared when I had nothing left to give. I told him about nights spent under bridges, days wandering the streets begging for work, the endless rejection and stares that made me feel like less than a person. My voice shook, but I kept talking because I needed him to understand. I needed someone, anyone, to see me. The crowd listened too, though their eyes still held pity and doubt. But his expression never changed. He listened quietly, intently, as though every word mattered. And when I finally stopped, when my throat was raw and tears blurred my vision, he simply nodded. "You did the right thing," he said. 3 simple words, yet they felt heavier than all the money in his wallet. I thought that was the end, that he would turn, walk away, and return to his life of polished glass towers and endless wealth, leaving me standing there with nothing but my shame. But instead, he gestured for me to follow. "Come with me," he said. My legs nearly buckled. I didn't understand. Why? Where? My mind screamed with questions, but my body moved on its own. I followed him past the stunned receptionist, past the security who only hours ago were ready to throw me out. The crowd's whispers followed me, each one stinging my back like tiny blades. We entered the private elevator, the golden doors sliding shut behind us, sealing me away from the world I had known. The silence inside was suffocating. I could hear the hum of the elevator, the pounding of my own heart, but not his voice. He stood beside me, calm, unreadable, his eyes fixed ahead. I wanted to ask what was happening, but the words died in my throat. What if this was a trick? What if he thought I had stolen something else? Or worse, what if he planned to use me as an example? My mind spun with fears, but beneath them all, a flicker of something else burned. Hope. When the doors opened, we stepped into an office so large and bright it felt unreal. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, sunlight spilling across a desk carved from polished wood. This was his world. A world so far removed from mine, it might as well have been another planet. He walked behind the desk, setting the wallet down carefully, then looked at me again. "You could have kept it," he said. "No one would have known." I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. But I would have known. Something flickered in his eyes then. Respect, maybe, or something deeper. He nodded once, slowly, and for the first time since I stepped into that building, I felt like the floor wasn't going to collapse beneath me. But I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that what happened next would shake me more than any cold night on the street ever had. Because sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't save you. Sometimes, it drags you into a storm you never saw coming. I stood there in his office, my knees trembling. The city lights sprawled out behind him like a painting. For a moment, I didn't know whether to sit, to stand, or to run. His presence filled the room in a way that made the air heavier, and yet, I couldn't look away. "You have strength," he said suddenly, his voice calm but piercing. "Nah, most people would have taken the money, but you didn't. Why?" The question hit me harder than I expected. Why didn't I? I thought of the nights I'd gone hungry, of the cold sidewalks where my body ached from sleeping on stone. That money could have bought me food, shelter, a chance to breathe. But when I pictured myself keeping it, I saw my mother's face, the way she had raised me, teaching me that honesty was the only thing no one could ever steal from you. I couldn't, I whispered, my voice cracking. If I stole it, I wouldn't be me anymore. I've already lost everything else. I can't lose that too. He leaned back slightly in his chair, studying me as though weighing every word. His eyes, sharp and unreadable, softened for just a flicker of a second. "You remind me of someone I used to know," he murmured. I didn't ask who. I didn't dare. The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, until finally he stood and walked toward the window, his hands clasped behind his back. "You know," he began, his voice low but firm, "people like me, we live in a cage. It's made of glass, polished and clean, but it's still a cage. Everyone wants something: money, favors, power, honesty. That's the rarest currency of all. And you gave it to me without asking for anything in return." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I wasn't trying to... "I know," he interrupted gently. Then he turned back to me, his gaze steady. "That's why it matters." My mind spun. None of this made sense. Why was he telling me this? Why did it feel like he was peeling away layers of a life I'd never imagined being a part of? Before I could think of what to say, the phone on his desk rang. He answered, his tone shifting into something sharper, colder. I couldn't make out all the words, but I caught fragments. Meeting. Investors. Delay no longer. His jaw tightened. His voice clipped. And then, just as quickly, he hung up and exhaled slowly, the mask of control slipping back into place. He looked at me again. "You can't stay on the streets anymore. It's not safe." The word startled me. "What?" "You'll stay here tonight. I'll arrange for a room." My chest tightened. The offer was too big, too generous. My instincts screamed to refuse, to protect myself. People don't give without wanting something in return. That was the rule of survival I had learned the hard way. But when I opened my mouth to protest, he raised a hand. "This isn't charity. Call it repayment for your honesty." Repayment. The word rolled around in my head. Maybe that was the only way I could accept it, if I thought of it as balance, not pity. So I nodded slowly, my voice too small to argue. "Thank you." That night, I lay in a bed softer than anything I'd felt in years. The sheets smelled of lavender, the room quiet except for the faint hum of the city outside the window. And yet, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the lobby, the stairs, his voice cutting through the accusations like a shield. But underneath it all, something unsettled me. Why me? Why did a man like him, surrounded by wealth and power, care about a stranger like me? The next morning, I got my answer. I was sipping the hot tea they'd brought to my room. Real tea, not the bitter scraps I used to steal from cafe trash bins, when the door opened. His assistant, a tall woman in a sleek black suit, stepped in. Her eyes scanned me quickly, and her expression told me exactly what she thought. I didn't belong. "Mr. Grant would like to see you," she said, her tone clipped, efficient. My heart skipped. Mr. Grant. So that was his name. The man behind the wealth, the power, the piercing gaze that had both terrified and protected me. When I entered his office again, he was already standing by the window, the morning sun outlining him in gold. He turned slowly, his face unreadable. "I have a proposal for you," he said. My breath caught. His assistant, icy as ever, handed me papers, instructions, tasks that made little sense. She spoke quickly, her tone sharp, like every word was a test I was destined to fail. But Mr. Grant, he watched silently, and when my hands trembled too much to hold a pen steady, He didn't laugh. He didn't scold. He simply said, "You'll learn." And so I tried. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, I began to understand the rhythm of the office. Phones that never stopped ringing, men in suits who looked at me like I was invisible, meetings filled with words I didn't understand. But behind all of it, there was him, always watching, guiding, never letting me fall too far. And yet, outside those walls, life hadn't changed. Every night when I walked the streets, I still felt the stares, the judgment. Homeless once meant worthless in their eyes, no matter where I worked. I was a stranger in two worlds, too poor to belong among the wealthy, too changed to return to the streets I came from. One evening, as I left the building, I felt it again. The stares, the whispers. A man in a security uniform narrowed his eyes at me. His hand hovered near his radio, as if I were a threat. My chest tightened, fear spreading through me like fire. "Ma'am," he barked. "This area's private property. Where do you think you're going?" I froze. My badge was buried in my bag. My tongue stumbled over words, trying to explain, but his eyes told me he'd already decided who I was. To him, I wasn't an employee. I wasn't someone with purpose. I was just a homeless woman pretending to belong. "I work here," I said softly, my voice breaking. He scoffed. "Sure you do." Before I could defend myself, he reached for my arm. Panic shot through me. Not again. Not after everything. My breath came fast. My vision blurred. And then, his voice cut through the chaos. "Let her go." Mr. Grant's tone was sharp, commanding. The guard froze, his face draining of color as he realized who was watching. "She works here," Grant said, his eyes cold. "And if I ever see you question that again, you won't work here." The guard stammered apologies, stepping back quickly, but the damage was done. My hands shook, my chest tight with humiliation. Even with a job, even with his protection, I was still invisible to them, still unwanted. Later, in his office, I broke down. My voice trembled as I finally said the words I'd been holding inside. "It doesn't matter, does it? No matter what I do, they'll never see me as anything but what I was. Homeless, broken, nothing." For the first time, his composure cracked. His jaw clenched, his eyes darkened, and he leaned forward. "Listen to me," he said quietly, but with a fire in his voice. "You are not nothing. They only see what they want to see because it keeps their world safe. But you..." He paused, his gaze locking on mine. "You are proof that the world can change, that people can rise." His words cut through me, sharp and unexpected. Proof, change, rise. Was that really who I was? Or was it just who he wanted me to be? The days that followed grew heavier. The whispers around the office grew louder. People questioned why I was there, what I had done to earn his trust. Some said I was a thief. Others said worse. Each word clung to me like poison, and I could feel the weight pressing down. But every time I wanted to give up, his voice came back to me. "You are not nothing." One night, as I walked home, I thought about that wallet. That single moment on the street when my entire life had changed. And I realized, maybe it wasn't the wallet that had changed everything. Maybe it was the choice I made. The choice to stay honest when the world expected me to break. And maybe, just maybe, that choice was only the beginning. I still remember the night it all came crashing down. The office was unusually quiet. The kind of silence that makes the air feel heavy. like something terrible is about to happen. I was sorting through files, trying to ignore the whispers that never seemed to stop, when I heard voices echoing down the hallway, raised, sharp, angry. I peeked around the corner and saw them. 3 men in suits, faces twisted with disdain. They weren't just employees, they were investors. Powerful men who thought money gave them the right to decide who mattered and who didn't. "She doesn't belong here," one of them hissed. "She's a stain on this company." "She's nothing but a street rat," another added, "and he parades her around like she's some example. It's embarrassing." Their words cut deep, sharper than any knife. I pressed my back against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would tear through my chest. I wanted to disappear, to run, but before I could move, I heard another voice. His voice. "Enough!" Mr. Grant stood at the end of the hall, his eyes blazing with fury. "You think your money gives you the right to decide who is worthy? She's worth more than all of you combined." The men laughed bitterly. "She's nothing, Grant, nothing. And if you keep choosing her over us, you'll lose everything." The world seemed to freeze. Lose everything. The threat hung in the air, heavy and real. My stomach turned. This was it. The moment everything I feared would finally come true. He would see that I wasn't worth it. He would send me back to the streets where I belonged. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice steady, powerful. "Then take it all. I'd rather lose every dollar than sell my soul to men who can't see the truth in front of them." The silence that followed was deafening. The investors stormed out, slamming the doors behind them, leaving only the 2 of us standing in that heavy silence. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears spilled down my cheeks, hot and uncontrollable. "Why?" I cried. "Why would you risk everything for me?" He looked at me, and for the first time, the mask of the powerful millionaire slipped. His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "Because you reminded me of who I used to be, before all of this, before the money, the lies, the cage. You reminded me what it feels like to be human again." In that moment, something inside me broke and healed all at once. I realized it wasn't about a wallet anymore. It wasn't about charity, or pity, or even opportunity. It was about choice. The choice I made to stay honest. The choice he made to see me. But the world didn't change overnight. The whispers didn't stop. The stares didn't disappear. Even now when people look at me, some still see the homeless girl who had nothing. And maybe that will never go away. But I'm not nothing. I carry the scars of the streets, the weight of hunger, the sting of humiliation. I carry the memory of nights spent under cold stars, praying for one more day. And I carry the moment when everything could have been lost, but wasn't. This isn't just my story. It's the story of everyone who's ever been told they don't belong. Everyone who's ever been judged for what they look like, where they come from, or what they don't have. It's about the cages we're forced into, and the choice to break free. And now I ask you, how many more people like me will it take? How many voices silenced? How many lives discarded before the world finally sees the truth? Because I was called nothing, but I am something. And so are all of us.